Hello folks, and welcome back to my channel. We are soft launching the new mullet today. But in all actuality, I wanted to do another Try to Get Ready With Me, talking some more about some life stuff with being non-binary and on HRT, because I got a really great response about that on my first video about this that I made. So for anyone who did not get a chance to see that video, I will go ahead and link it in this one, but I made the announcement a while ago, like 2 months ago, that I was finally starting HRT, which has been a super exciting journey for me so far. I'm taking testosterone through Plume. I'm doing low-dose testosterone, and so far it's been an amazingly gender-affirming experience. And I talk more about like the decision to start T and like the process for me in that video. And the feedback on that video largely was super popular, which I was really excited about. But a lot of folks did have some really good questions, the biggest among them being, if you are non-binary, if you're not like a trans man or even, particularly trans masc, why take testosterone? Essentially, the curiosity was like, what does it mean to you to transition as someone who's non-binary, and why? And it prompted me to want to make a whole video talking about that, because honestly, that was a question that I had for myself. I can remember years ago thinking like, oh, like maybe T is for me. But then thinking like, well, I don't want to like completely transition to male. Like I don't identify as a man or as male. I don't, think I want bottom surgery. I don't even quite frankly think I want top surgery. I would take a reduction if the technique was right for me, probably, but I don't think I would want full top surgery. So I was like, why take hormones? Why transition? A step as someone who's non-binary and not looking for some of those other changes. And as I've spoken about before here on my channel, the gateway for me was really other forms of gender-affirming plastic surgery. I've talked about it before, I have videos about it, but I had some masculinizing work done on my face and also on my stomach and torso. And that was my first introduction to masculinizing surgical work that wasn't top or bottom surgery. And that opened so many doors of potential for me. And I say this, I preface this with everything, like non-binary people don't owe you androgyny, but also everyone's experience of non-binary is different. And for me, it's not about an existence outside of gender, it's about a fluidity and a fusion between gender. So there are times when I feel and want to present more masculine, and there's times when I feel and want to present more feminine. And there are times where I don't feel like either, but I do tend to lead more to one side or the other. And what an ideal non-binary existence looks like for me is being able to, I guess maybe gender fluid would be a better word for me, but we're not there yet. We're still just non-binary works for the time being. But being able to like fluidly shift between presenting very feminine and presenting very masculine, and enjoying both of those elements and also something in between. Like if I had to sum it up in words, I'd really like to look feminine in a masculine way. And as someone who was assigned female at birth and has lived my whole life with female hormones, and has a very feminine shape and figure, that wasn't really going to happen for me. At least not the way I wanted it to, not the way I aspired to it. But when I looked at some of the things that HRT could offer me, things like body fat recomposition, where it changes the way my body holds its fat and fatty tissue into a more masculine shape. My shoulders get broader. It's easier for me to build muscle on my arms. My stomach and my hips might hold weight a little bit more narrower, that like Dorito shape. It can change the way the fat distributes on your face. It can change your jaw structure and the structure around your eyes in a much more masculine way. Some of the body hair changes that came along with it. And I am not a super hairy person, nor do I enjoy being super hairy. I actually get waxed pretty regularly. But there's elements of like the way brow hairs fill in and the way arm hair comes in that were very attractive to me when I thought about them in a masculinizing lens. Bottom growth was actually a huge draw for me. I obviously get to do a lot of genital piercings for trans clients, and I saw a lot of clients who've been on HRT for a while, and I got to see their bottom growth, and every time I would be like, wow, that, I like that. Like, not that I wasn't super unhappy or super dysphoric about my vulva before, but, you know, it's one thing to see pictures of bottom growth online and talk about it clinically, and it's another thing entirely to, like, be in a professional setting where I get to work with that anatomy all the time. And every single time I would be with those clients and having those interactions and just thinking, and even communicating with the clients, like, this is really affirming. And the clients were like, this has been amazing for me. This has been so affirming. And the whole time I was like, damn, I kind of think that would be really affirming for me too. Not to mention the added benefit of bottom growth allowing me to get piercings that I previously wasn't able to. I've always wanted a triangle. I've always thought they looked amazing. They're very gender affirming. They're very functional, like 10 out of 10. Amazing piercing. But I didn't have the anatomy for it. A lot, in fact, the majority almost of cis women and AFAB folks who don't go on HRT won't have triangle anatomy. It's pretty uncommon anatomy. But on HRT, it's super common to get triangle anatomy. Like, I would almost say like 80 to 90% of people who go on HRT within the first year or two will have good anatomy for a triangle piercing. But I think something that held me back and something that was a big struggle for me was that I felt like if I wanted to go on HRT, I had to want to transition to be a man, or at the very least identify as someone more trans masculine. I felt like I couldn't go on HRT and still be someone who wore dresses and high heels and makeup and long hair all the time. That I think a lot of us can relate to, whether we feel the same way or we have the same questions, that was like, well, T is for people who want to transition to men. And internally, that sounds like I'm faking it if I want to go on T. Or if I go on T, I can't still embrace my feminine side, or I can't still wear makeup, or I can't still wear dresses. And externally, it looks like a lot of the people who've left me comments and gone, why would you go on T if you're not going to become a man? Or what's the point of that? And I think for a lot of us who are non-binary, the intersection of those two things becomes very difficult. The voices in our heads that tell us that if we're going to take hormones, be it testosterone or estrogen, that we have to be fully transitioning one way or the other, and if we aren't, we are somehow faking it or not trans enough. And then the external responses we get. There's a lot of people, especially a lot of people who are not trans or not in the LGBTQ community, who very firmly believe that hormones are only for someone who's transitioning one way or the other. Even allies, even people who aren't like trying to troll or be rude. There's this limited mindset that hormones mean you have to be transitioning one way or another. And then our internal voices that tell us that we're not enough, or that we're somehow taking it away from binary trans people. And when you combine those two things, it makes it really difficult, I think, for a lot of non-binary people to want to transition or want to take hormones. And beyond that, there just wasn't a lot of information out there about being non-binary and taking HRT. When I was looking into doing this and thinking about doing this, I found a lot of trans men stories. And I would see them, talking about their transition years later, and they had these full beards, strong chests, deep voices. I mean, they look great, but that wasn't what I wanted for me. And when they talked about their experience on T, a lot of times they were talking about their experience on high dose testosterone, how quickly their voice changed, how quickly their beard grew in, and none of that sounded like what I wanted. I mean, some of those changes did, for sure. That's why I ended up starting T. But when they talked about immediately becoming so masculine, that just wasn't it for me. And it wasn't until I was sitting on TikTok and I was following more non-binary creators who took testosterone in a different way, who were talking about their experiences on low-dose T or on stop and start cycles of T, who were getting tiny bits of bottom growth and small amounts of vocal changes and small amounts of hair changes over the course of a year or two. And I was following these people and seeing their results and thinking, I mean, wow, like that sounds what I want. That sounds very interesting to me. You know, we talk all the time online about how representation matters and the power of representation and all of this stuff. And God, it's so true, because it wasn't until I saw some representation on TikTok of people who were non-binary taking tea and transitioning that I felt like it gave me permission to do this. Even though I've been working extensively with trans clients for the last 5 years, and the first time I can remember talking about wanting to take tea or having an interest in some of the effects it causes was almost 6 or 7 years ago. It wasn't until I saw other non-binary people living authentically and living as themselves and doing this that I gave myself the permission to do this. Because here's the thing, hormones don't have to all be strictly one thing or the other. You don't have to immediately become a girly girl when you take estrogen, and you don't immediately have to become a manly man when you take testosterone. And choosing to take hormones doesn't mean that you're committing to take them forever. I am most certainly not going to be on tea for the rest of my life. I don't want to grow a full beard. I don't want to get super hairy, and I don't want completely dramatic voice changes. But some body hair changes, the happy trail that I'm growing on my stomach, makes me feel incredible. The bottom growth that I've already gotten within the first little bit of tea, amazing. There's so much more out there than just take tea, completely become the opposite gender. There's all of that in-between phase that for a lot of trans men and trans women, they gloss over as the journey to the destination. But for those of us who are non-binary, sometimes we want to get off quite a few exits before anyone else. Sometimes those early portions of what is a journey for others is the destination for us. I mean, gosh, I have one client who, after talking to me about my experience with tea and my bottom growth, is a completely cisgendered woman, does not want to do anything, but really wanted certain genital piercings she couldn't get. She took tea for 2 weeks, got enough bottom growth to get some of the work she wanted, and then promptly stopped it with no intention to ever start it again. She literally just took tea to be able to get the piercings that she really wanted. And I think something that really helps is reframing the way we look at hormones and transitioning. For a very long time, I personally just looked at hormones as a means to a destination. You take hormones, and then there's a magic wand wave, and a year later you're a different gender. And that's not how they work at all. They work more like going to the gym and working out. One might just go to the gym for a month or two and really like their results and stop there. Some people might go to the gym for a year or two and get super ripped and like their results and stopped there. And some people might go to the gym every week for the rest of their life and get absolutely swole and super fit and love their results there. But everyone's journey with the gym and fitness is still valid. For some people, they just want to go to the gym and get on the treadmill. Others want to go to the gym and just lift some weights and do some exercises. And others want to lift big and heavy all the time for the rest of their lives. And those are all completely valid ways to go to the gym and work out and change your body. Choosing to transition with HRT is very much the same. I don't have to want every single change hormones might give me, and I don't have to plan to be on hormones for the rest of my life. I don't even have to plan to be on hormones for an incredibly long time. Being honest, I got a month into HRT, and then I was traveling and I had a bunch of guest spots come up, and I stopped taking it for a month and a half and then started again. And I wasn't super upset about it because it allowed my transition to happen even slower. And for me, low and slow was the name of the game. I am very happy taking my transition very slowly, taking pauses from tea as changes start to happen faster than what I'm anticipating, and I'm in no rush to get to whatever end point there is. I don't even know what the end point is for me. I won't know it until I'm there. But like I said, just like working out and going to the gym, it's an experience that's personal and unique to me, as is everyone else's journey. I think it's very interesting how easy it is for us to be able to understand that everyone's experience of gender is going to be different and unique. The experience of a woman who becomes a mother of 5, her journey through womanhood is going to be very different than the experience of a woman who isn't able and doesn't want to conceive, never has children, and instead takes a fantastic career path and becomes a CEO. They both are going to have very different experiences of womanhood. And both of those experiences of womanhood here in America would be incredibly different from the experience of womanhood and motherhood in France, or in Japan, or in Malaysia, or in Iran. They're all going to be colored by the lives that we choose to lead, the cultures that we find ourselves in, the relationships that we build, and all of the decisions we make throughout our life is going to color a unique experience of gender, of womanhood, or masculinity, or being non-binary for every one of us. And if we can understand that we are all going to have different personal experiences with gender, then I think we can also understand that we're all going to have different personal experiences with transitioning. My experience of transitioning and being non-binary is going to be completely different than the experience of a binary trans man and a trans woman. And someone else who's non-binary will have a completely different experience through transitioning than I do. My amazing friend Rob has gotten top surgery and currently isn't really that interested in taking HRT, but top surgery was perfect for him. Me personally, top surgery isn't really something I'm considering, but HRT, that's been amazing. There is not only one way to be a man or a woman or trans or non-binary, and there's not only one way to transition either. Your experience with choosing to transition or never choosing to transition can be as unique as you are. But if you are non-binary and you've been considering experimenting with transitioning or HRT, or it's just something you're curious about, I would so strongly encourage you to get the information, talk to a doctor, talk to some other non-binary people who have been transitioning, and see if it might be right for you. And if you're not considering HRT or transitioning, that's totally fine and completely valid as well. You don't have to. I decided to start HRT so that the body that I live in every day more closely resembles who I am inside and who I am in my mind and who I am in my heart. For me, some of those small initial changes with HRT, and who knows, maybe even larger changes down the road, are exactly what I'm looking for to allow my outside to reflect my inside. It may not be that way for everyone, and that's perfectly okay too. But I hope that in sharing this experience of mine and just living my life very authentically and very out loud, I can show other people that it is okay to live your life as authentically as you want to as well. And as of filming this video, I am just shy of 4 months on HRT. We're starting to get some vocal changes. I think if you go back and watch like my super earlier videos to my ones now, it's subtle, but there's definitely a little bit of a difference there, and I've even had some times where my voice has been cracking and we've been seeing some definite changes. There's already been a ton of bottom growth, which I'm super stoked on, and the sleeves of a lot of my t-shirts are getting pretty tight. I have been going to the gym a bunch in conjunction with starting tea, so that has definitely helped with body recomposition, and it's wild how quickly the gym plus tea really changes that shape for you. I don't think I've noticed many changes to my face yet, but that's neither here nor there, and I've definitely noticed some more hair growth. I've got a nice little happy trail that's coming in that I love, and the hair on my thighs is still pretty pale and pretty thin, but I notice that there's more of it, and the hair that I do wax grows back a lot faster. I have to go get waxed every 3 weeks now instead of 4, which is kind of a hassle. I've also definitely been dealing with hormonal acne since starting tea, and while that has not been great, I kind of knew it was happening, so I knew to be prepared for it. But that's where things are currently at, and I can't wait to sit down and give y'all some more updates on my transition and on my HRT as changes happen and as things go on. Please remember that you are loved and that you are valid, and whatever your experience of gender and sexuality and transition might be, it's totally okay. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I can't wait to sit down and hang out with all of you again soon. Bye!